Twitch.
Okay.
NLE. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Fast.
Well, this is Twitch or YouTube?
YouTube.
Alright, I'm just gonna watch it on
Yeah.
YouTube then.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I am a menace. Keep me on action like tennis. I'm a finish. Niggas be hating, trying to blow us my image. Want the smoke, TTG came with the scope. It's still cook on this rope. We wiping no. Jolly, he had him cold. I didn't pull us up.
I knew that boy was a beat. See Bo4,
Hey, Jermaine.
ugly ass shotgun.
Hey, Jermaine, what this do?
Huh?
What this do?
Equipment.
Oh, it make you
Talking about
heal.
steel shot.
Oh, it make you heal faster and you get it faster. I thought it meant like
Yeah.
I thought you had to have it to heal. In that case, put body armor on for the rest of my arm. And yes, I do play with the RC.
Bro, I wish I could play with you, bro.
Yeah. You wanna play with me? No homo.
You gay.
That's what I just said, no homo.
Oh, I'll be back. I'm gonna go buy some chill.
Take out. Ocean man, take me by the hand, lead me through the land. Don't you understand? Get your game, okay? You can't even play Bo4 on your phone. They had made an ad about playing it on your phone.
Exercise extreme prejudice. Hostile UAV circling. Assault back right here.
Disruptor ready. Disruptor going up.
drastically different from all other courses in the game. There were no walls, very few obstacles, and any false move would send you falling off the track. This course's difficulty became a natural attraction for speedrunners, whose goal it was to race through the track as fast as possible. And throughout the Mario Kart games, all of which feature their own version of Rainbow Road, this course's legacy is still preserved. Let's take a look at how speedrunners have been able to break this course to set world records. Let's see just how good people can get at racing through Rainbow Road.
Hostile care package inbound.
The story begins in 1992. This was the year that introduced the franchise's staple course, Rainbow Road, from Nintendo's Super Mario Kart. The game had two different methods of racing: Grand Prix, where you raced against other drivers, and time trials, where you raced against yourself to set the fastest time possible. This video is going to be focused on world records achieved in the time trials mode. The goal of time trials was to race 5 laps around Rainbow Road as fast as possible. And today, the leaderboard is split up into NTSC and PAL world records. The NTSC version of the game was released in North America and Japan, while the PAL version was released in Europe and most other regions of the world. The main difference between PAL and NTSC is their frame rate. NTSC is 60 frames per second, while PAL is 50 frames per second. This led to the developers changing a lot of the code between the two versions, resulting in race times that are a few seconds faster on the NTSC version. The very early history of who could race around Rainbow Road the fastest is extremely difficult to find. Given the difficulties of accessing the internet in the early to mid-90s, the overall world record was not particularly well kept track of. The earliest agreed upon records on Rainbow Road come from the late 90s and early 2000s, with the NTSC record typically staying a couple seconds ahead of the PAL record. While video proof doesn't exist for many of these runs, we still have a pretty good idea of what these records looked like. They in all likelihood used either Bowser or Donkey Kong Jr. as their racer, since they had the highest top speed on the main road. They probably took full advantage of hopping over corners, a technique used to gain small amounts of time on each lap. One technique that could not be used, however, was boosting. By turning around a sufficiently large section of the track, holding accelerate, and pressing either left or right on the shoulder buttons, the racer gains a small speed boost after completing the turn. However, Rainbow Road doesn't have any turns large enough to build a boost, as you need to be turning for at least 74 frames, or over a second, in order for the boost to be built. So, driving around Rainbow Road simply consisted of cutting turns as tightly as possible and hopping over corners. One of the most dominant runners of the early 2000s was Jamie White, an NTSC player who, in a 10-day span in January 2003, set 9 world records on Rainbow Road. He didn't have any mind-blowing new strategies, he was just extremely good at the game. One of the best players Super Mario Kart had ever seen up to that point. On the PAL side, Sami was the first verifiable record.
Man, you say you wanted to play with me?
And Geo traded the record back and forth throughout 2005, before Kart 7 snagged it right back before the new year.
Let me see the contract.
Then, in 2006, a revolution was discovered across Super Mario Kart as a whole. The backs of the D-pads on Super Nintendo controllers have a bump that prevents 2 opposite directions from being pressed at the same time. Kart 7 discovered that by opening the controller and shaving this bump down, it was possible to get boosts much more easily by using a method called the zigzag boost. The player could hop and wiggle from left to right on the controller even while going over a straight section of the course, and begin to build up their boost without turning. This, combined with going over a long enough turn, would mean boosts were now possible frequently throughout Rainbow Road, saving a fraction of a second each time. Now, the idea of modifying a controller to gain an advantage may sound controversial, but this practice was more to standardize play than anything else. Super Nintendo controllers sometimes naturally shave this bump down through heavy use alone, so allowing people to do it themselves just made it fair to everyone. There's still a leaderboard that doesn't allow these types of boosts, the non-NBT leaderboard, but for simplicity's sake, we'll be focusing on runs where the boosting is allowed. KVD would end up lowering both the PAL and NTSC records down further using the zigzag boost, farther into the 126 range on PAL and down to a 123 on NTSC. Other competitors would get a hold of these records for periods of time, but KVD's mastery of the zigzag boost helped him continuously regain his title. Japan also has their own leaderboards for the game, and in June 2012, a player known as Marisa posted an NTSC time of 123.51, along with a video for proof. This was more than a quarter of a second ahead of the NTSC record at the time, and the way Marisa did it was by A, just driving really well, and B, by utilizing a technique known as hop boosting. Normally, players build a boost by zigzagging on the straight path before a corner. Since you can't normally build a boost while hopping over a corner, it's sometimes necessary to spend a little extra time on the straight path to build up the boost, causing the hop to be a little bit later and having it be a little bit less than optimal. However, Super Mario Kart has two hopping buttons, L and R. Keep in mind one of these must be pressed the entire time you're building the boost for it to be built properly. You press one of them to hop, and then by switching to the other one the frame after you let go of the original one, the game will allow your boost to keep building. Since you can now continue building your boost while in the air, the zigzag boost build can be stopped slightly sooner, and you can get an optimal hop over the corners. This extremely difficult technique is known as a hop boost, and helped Marisa save a few frames over the course of the run. This record is a bit controversial in the Western world, mostly due to a lack of communication between Marisa and the West. So far, nobody has been able to beat it. The closest any other NTSC player has gotten is a 123.63 by KVD, achieved in January 2018. Even 7 years after his time was achieved, Marisa's record still reigns supreme by over a tenth of a second. So that's the history of Super Mario Kart's Rainbow Road World Records. But a few years after this game, Nintendo released its first sequel. Its legacy is preserved by its hundreds of active time trial players, and it has one of the most broken speedruns out there. This is Mario Kart 64. Mario Kart 64 was the first game in the franchise to be in full 3D. Courses could now go up and down instead of just left and right. Naturally, this meant the developers could do a lot more with Rainbow Road when designing it. The end result, however, was this. This is Rainbow Road. It's the longest course in the entire Mario Kart franchise. In some respects, it's the complete opposite of the Super Mario Kart iteration. Instead of having no walls, there's a rail along both sides of the track all the way through to prevent you from falling off. There's no thwomps ready to crush you, but instead a few chain chomps that roam the track trying to hit you. It's a bizarre course. You're just surrounded by space while driving around a seemingly endless rainbow path. There's no risk of falling off. You just drive as well as you can. However, I mentioned before that Mario Kart 64 was a really broken game. There are large skips on most of the tracks. And as innocent as Rainbow Road may seem, it too can be broken just the same. One of the game's most famous shortcuts is from the very start of Rainbow Road. You jump off the side of the track as it goes downhill, and land far down on the track below. This trick was discovered essentially right as the game came out, and it's impossible to tell who the first person was to pull it off. It cuts out a pretty significant portion of the track, as you can see from the minimap. The best part is, it's really easy to perform. Many could pull out their copy of Mario Kart 64 right now and probably get it on one of their first attempts. After getting this jump, it was up to the player to simply torque twice. The player builds up a boost that can then be released